Uh, hey, welcome to whatever we're calling this, our weekly lives at 3 p.m. Eastern. Yeah,
Most Fridays.
on most Fridays. So we will probably not be doing next Friday because we're going to be actually celebrating our anniversary. So, and what we wanted to do today was share some of our ups and downs of 15 years of doing this together. One of the things I've learned in uh, working in the financial sector and seeing where the successes usually work and where the failures usually are when we talk about money with our spouse. Um, and we've had successes and we've had failures. And so if you're joining us here, we want this to be an interactive thing. So comment on here. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to hear your thoughts on money and relationship. So that's today's title. Is what do we call it? I don't know, something along those lines.
Celebrating 15 years of marriage and money. That's the title.
Yep. So this almost fell. So yeah, I can't believe it's been 15 years. Can you?
Nope. We haven't quite hit it. We've got a little less than a week until we hit 15 years. We'll see if we make it.
I think we will do okay. So, and I was just talking to my neighbor earlier today, and he's been married for 45 years. So we're still young, a young married couple, according to him. So anyway, so here's the thing. We've done a lot of stuff with money, right? And that's why I feel like we can talk about what we do in our history and help others because we've kind of walked some of that road. Take us back, Amanda, if you could, to year zero.
Yeah, actually, I'm glad you said it that way because really the journey with money started before we were even married. We picked out our first apartment before we actually got married. And so then I could move my stuff in and then you could be ready to move your stuff in after the wedding day. And that was fun. We thought a lot about how much we can afford for an apartment. We ended up Brandon was living here and I was living down here and we were looking for a place in the middle to meet like kind of halfway. And then we both commute to our jobs from there. And so we didn't know the neighborhood very well. We hired a guy to help us, or not hired a guy. We found a guy to help us find an apartment, assuming the landlord probably paid him. And he took us around to 3 different places. We told him our budget. Of course, he showed us something more than our budget. Maybe most of them were more than our budget because we were trying to be lower than maybe what we really could afford to make sure we could enjoy life and stuff still. And I actually didn't like any of them. I wanted to see more or consider different neighborhoods, but Brandon really liked one of them. And that was kind of the moment where we could have fought even more about it. I, could have stood my ground and said, no, we're going to keep looking. But I remember I said, well, if you feel that strongly about it, I'm willing to try. We're just signing a year lease. It's not like we're going to live there forever. Yep. And we did take that apartment, and that kind of like that decision-making journey of we both shared our opinions, but Brandon had a lot stronger opinions than I did. And so we went with his way. Has sometimes been how we do things. Other times we try to seek a compromise, right? There's not really going to be a compromise finding an apartment. You either find an apartment or you don't, right? There's not like a middle ground. Other times we've been able to find a middle ground, or sometimes when I feel strongly about something, Brandon's like, well, if you feel so strongly about that, then we'll try it out. And that's been kind of how we have operated. except with sometimes money. So,
Well,
Brandon,
and
sorry.
if you want to also go a little back there, we both came into the marriage with debt.
Yeah, I was
Um,
about to say, Brandon, before we got married, how did you manage money? What was your story with money like?
yeah, so part of it was, well, if I wanted to get something, I usually did. But if I wanted to, I don't know, as a bachelor, I eat cereal for dinner and stuff like that to pay the bills or whatever it was. And typically, money was in and out pretty quick with the student debt going. I also remember that, at the time of our marriage, a little bit before, experiencing Hurricane Katrina and how that impacted some of my thoughts on money and stuff in general, because my family was impacted by that. And that made me think about, hey, stuff doesn't matter. I remember having a car that was all uh, the sound system was all in it. I spent quite a bit of money for the sound system, and seriously, it got jacked out at while I was at work. Like literally on the other side of the wall, somebody broke into my car and stole all that equipment that really wasn't really. I don't know. In the hindsight, I'm like, it's not worth $1,000.
Yeah. Now, on the flip side, so I was a college student shortly before we got married. We got married 3 weeks after I graduated from college. And I was on a pretty strict budget. I remember having a money journal where I literally wrote in pen everything I spent my money on and would do some of the calculations in pencil because sometimes I do them wrong. I kept a checkbook. I tracked everything, and I didn't have a lot of savings, but I at least left college with only student debt. And then we did go into a little bit of credit card debt when to pay for the wedding, really, and the honeymoon and stuff. So when we got back from the honeymoon, that's where we kind of were. We brought in about $50,000 of student debt combined, and then we had a little bit of credit card debt just because we had a good wedding and a good honeymoon. We planned to only do that once in our life. So that's where we're at. And Brandon, I think if I remember correctly, you just kind of let me run with the budget a little bit. I, put together, here's how much our rent is, here's how much we can spend on different things, but we didn't really do a good job tracking it. Some of it was that you're commuting pretty far from work. There wasn't a lot of time in the day. We had volunteer activities we wanted to be doing, so we weren't using, there wasn't really all the like cool budgeting softwares that there are now, right? So it would have been tracking it with pen and paper and that kind of thing. It just takes a long time. And so we came up with let's just focus on what we can focus on, things like our food budget, both groceries and eating out, and then like not spending on unnecessary stuff, right? And I was like, this is what we could do. And that way we don't have to track anything. And you went along with it for whatever reason. But then I think you always felt stifled that you couldn't, like if you wanted something, you didn't ever feel like you could get it. Yeah. And I always felt like, why does he always want stuff? We're fine. We don't need stuff.
And that's still to this day, very similar in that. And I feel like I've learned a lot, and having certain accounts set up has helped say, oh, I can go do
now
this.
Now you're fast forwarding.
Oh yeah, fast forwarding. But at that point it was more of, I just guess we won't do that thing or have that thing because of the student debt and all that other things that were there. But we went and we worked for the man. We started making some decent money to eventually pay Sally Mae back, I think it was.
Do you remember the biggest expense in that first year of marriage that I finally got you to get rid of?
My car, I think it was.
Your Freedom Mobile, I called it.
I think you had orthodontic surgery.
That wasn't in the first year.
That was the second year.
or
or
maybe
third.
even third. Yeah. But
Um,
let's go back to that Freedom Mobile, because that was a big thing. You did not want to get rid of your car. And so here we were living in Chicago. I would take the public transit to work, and you would drive one car to work. And we kept getting parking tickets
yeah,
because they wouldn't put up the street cleaning signs until after we had left for work, and we would always be screwed. And so I finally convinced him, like, we're not just paying for gas and an insurance and the city sticker and all those things. We're also paying at least one parking ticket per month. You got to get rid of this thing. And then you finally did.
as a
Um,
line item, we started having to add parking tickets, and I'm pretty sure there was some kind of scam or something going on. Because I'm like, really, seriously, this is happening every month.
yep.
And then if you aren't diligent about paying it or whatever, you could end up in a lot of trouble.
Yep.
So that was the first year. And then I think a couple years, was it a couple years? We finally took care of some of our debt. But then we decided to do this business thing. We were both doing pretty good in our cubicle jobs. Like we were going up the ladder.
Kind of. Yeah.
I think you were for sure.
Yeah, I got some pretty significant pay raises in those first few years of our marriage, and we were starting to set aside money to purchase a home, probably a condo, in the city. We were thinking, and that's when Brandon came up with the crazy idea to start a business. It was 2 years into our marriage, in the second year, and I flat out told him, no, we're not doing that. That's crazy, and we got in some pretty big fights about it.
I don't remember all of them. I probably blocked them out.
We have we had a dent in our trash can, our old trash, like that we finally got rid of.
Yeah.
That was related around the same time.
Well, and there was other issues that were happening then. We were part of a church. I remember a friend of ours was living with us at that point, and there was just all kinds of stuff. But then
we had no right to start a business.
Yeah, we probably should not have. Like if you were following logic and everything, we probably shouldn't have started. We went against all the rules, but whatever those rules were, we didn't know what the rules were, really. And we were very idealistic, I think, at the time, and maybe still now. But that's helped us to actually get in to the business, and we had partners that helped us. But at the same time, we took on even more debt to start the business. And I hear people even today or yesterday, somebody's like, yeah, I think my wife wants to start a coffee shop. I'm like, don't. She shouldn't, because she doesn't want to work for somebody else.
If you can do anything else than start a coffee shop, do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
not a very profitable business necessarily.
But then we both started that, and you left your job, the high paying job actually, to start the business, which meant we weren't doing as extensive on the paying off the student loans and things like that. So we still had those, and I think that was stressful, knowing that we were called to do this business. How are we going to accomplish it? That was a little challenging. And then I remember you leaving your job, doing all the back end stuff that needed to happen, doing an internship, free internship. And when the doors finally opened, I couldn't do both. It just didn't work. It was too much. And so we took the plunge of me leaving the job, which I probably should have stayed there longer. I don't know.
Yeah. So that would have been, we opened that business within our 4th year of marriage, about 3-4 months before our 5-year anniversary of being married. And the next 2 years then became the hardest years of our marriage. I don't really know how we got through the first 5 years, but I for sure know how we got through those next 2 years. Hard, through grit, hard work, our stubbornness, and then also community. There was a point in there when everything almost broke, particularly our relationship. And if it wasn't for other people pouring into us and loving us and showing us how much they love for us, we could have never found that love and concern for one another again too.
Yeah.
And frankly, the debt, the business, having that might have saved our marriage too, right? Because who wants to divide up the debt, right, with their spouse if they were going to end that relationship or whatever. So
especially the business debt and all of that was complicated. Student debt's maybe different. You're like, all right, it's yours and whatever.
Yeah. But it was after we just said, we're going to figure out how to make this work, that we figured out first, we figured out how to make our relationship work, which was weekly date nights every week. No questions asked. In fact, it's every Friday night. So after we do our live here, we start transitioning to date night. Only rule of date night is we can't talk about work anymore. And that's when we get to connect as a couple every Friday evening. And it's been that way since 2012. Yeah, 2012.
Yep.
Yeah. And so like that, wow, I can't believe it's been like 9 years of weekly date nights. Occasionally we'll miss one or we'll move it from Friday to Saturday or something like that, but it's been pretty consistent that we do that. And then after we did that part, that's when we said, okay, if we're going to make our marriage work, now we got to make our money work.
Yep. And
we found some really cool things. We got financially literate. There was a really awesome documentary that increased our financial, or at least opened our eyes, that we thought we knew about money. Like we knew we could budget, we could balance a checkbook.
You had the Susie Orman book that you had really big, highlighted everything, and you were following all of her rules.
I totally thought I was financially illiterate. Anytime I was like deciding, do I take the 403B match at work, I would just pull out Susie's book and be like, okay, now I know what to do, right? Yep. And then we watched this documentary and was like, holy cow, I didn't know anything yet. And that's when we were like, we got to learn more. And we did. And then we found a budgeting software that totally transformed how we even thought about money. And I don't think those steps would have been possible if we hadn't recommitted to our relationship and making sure, who cares what happens to the business? If something happens to our marriage, it doesn't matter, right? What happens to the business? Our marriage has to come first before those things. And when we made that foundational decision, then the money decisions came after. Would you say that's true?
Yeah, I think the commitment to the relationship, first and foremost. I think in the vows, and sickness and in health, poor and rich or something. I don't remember.
We made up our own vows. We didn't say those, but
15 years. I don't even remember what I said in those things. That's, hopefully I'm not in trouble later. But I think that really it wasn't kind of knowing those things and knowing, hey, we did make this commitment to each other, and above the business, above everything else. And we came in with baggage, both of us. I mean, literally money baggage, things that we did not know. And one of the things I've learned in any of this is that we don't know very much. And even in the financial sector now that we're in, I still don't know a lot. And to be a learner and to always be learning and communicate is a takeaway that I think is no matter what.
Yeah. And so you might think the story stops there, right? We recommitted our relationship. We started, we became truly financial literate, not just, basic conventional stuff. And we started, learned way more about controlling our money than even just budgeting is. Yep. You might think the story ends there, but there's definitely some things that have transpired since. At one point, I handed over the day-to-day bill paying, reconciling the budget kind of things to Brandon. And it was an epic fail. We learned not to do that anymore. That is not his strength. Not what
that big of a epic fail. I mean,
we were definitely late on some bills and got some late fees multiple months in a row. So those came back to me. We learned we're just going to leave it that way. Let's not make that test again. Um, and then there were some big financial decisions in there too, like selling the business, buying a home, the just hiring staff again within the new business, and kind of what's on the horizon too. We still every day talk about how much should we spend, right? What of all these different categories in our budget, in our YNAB, you need a budget. Like, what do we want to prioritize in this season? What's important? What order did they come in? Those kind of things. Those conversations are always ongoing, I feel like.
Well, and also I think, there's all this move to the road to fire, being financially independent, then you can leave your job and do all this other stuff. What I found interesting is we did the, what do you say, the retire early side of things without the FI side of things.
At least leaving the cubicles and carving our own path, doing what we love. Yeah.
And I think that, Dave Ramsey, Susie Orman, all of those people would have said, no, don't do it. You need to have this all set up. And I think we were, well, again, idealistic, and we thought we knew a lot, but also we were learning, and we continue to learn. And I think that's what helped us to know, hey, we have these rules and guidelines, but sometimes you got to follow where you're calling or leading. And selling the business was one of those things where, like, oh, Amanda's pregnant. Congratulations. And we have a coffee shop that we weren't getting paid as much as we needed to. That's why we were not reached. That's why we haven't reached that whole FI thing earlier, right? Because literally running a coffee shop business, you don't make that much money. People think they do, but you don't.
Maybe we did it wrong, though.
Yeah, maybe, or we didn't have a rich relative to help us,
or whatever,
create multiple shops. I don't know. It was our story. We learned, and we did ultimately sell it, and that was a great decision. And moved in. We also had ups and downs, like your mom moving in with us, which is both positive and negative, and in the financial side of things. And having a baby, both positive and negative. Because I don't know if anybody's had children, but they cost money.
Even before they're born, they cost money.
Yeah. So those things we learned, and just to roll with the punches. That's one of the rules of YNAB, I think. Roll with the punches.
Yeah, that's rule number 2.
Yep.
I believe. Give every dollar job, roll with the punches. You can learn the 3rd and 4th one at ynab.com.
I can get them. So I think that that's been good. Also, now, are we moving back into what year are we at now?
2021. Or no, we caught up the different challenges. Yeah. And then what's coming next?
Yeah, I think one of the things I learned as we went through, and we had a podcast episode with Jonathan Rivera, and he said, have your mad money, and starting to set that up, and you having that line item and having the fun money there is helpful for me, because then Amanda always was like, we can't afford it, we can't do this or that. And if you have that mad money, it's allocated, then I can spend it on whatever.
Yep.
And I don't.
Not that, yeah. Now I've trained him so well. No, just kidding. Now you've come over to the light side, to the frugal side. You have a hard time even spending that now.
Well, and I don't know that, again, a speaker in my car isn't that much of an importance to me and I don't know.
Things like health and fitness, and those aren't necessarily that expensive.
Yeah. And I think that our income has grown and our we're not like increasing our lifestyle or need to, I guess. Like, does that
Yeah.
make sense?
Yeah. I mean, full disclosure, we live in an 1,800 square foot home. For Americans, that's actually pretty small, but it meets all our needs. And I'd live in a tiny house if I could. So it fits. Um, and it's not like we need something that's twice the size.
What is the average house size?
Yeah, let me look up average. I'm going to Google it. Average size of home in US. Google tells me it's 2,687 square feet.
So
It grew 62% from 1973 to 2015. Houses have gotten much bigger. Back in 1973, the average house size was 1,660.
so this
So
was a big house that we bought.
back when it was built in 1940.
Yep. And I find that interesting that our sizes have gotten bigger as far as houses, other things, and we wonder why people are in debt and not able to save. Maybe that's a correlation.
Maybe.
And 1,800, it seems fine to me.
Yeah.
We have 4 bedrooms, 4 people. Is it 4 bed? Yeah.
Yep.
And it works. So
yeah, because the fourth bedroom is your office.
Yep.
Right there. Yep. And we have a basement. That's where I'm at now. That's maybe getting into TMI. People don't need to know about our house, but the next thing is like we're kind of the amazing things can go from here. The awesome things about money that we can teach our son, the opportunities that we have to make sure that we're taking care of each other throughout our lifetimes, or if something happens to one another. There's really a lot more options and things we can kind of just have fun with now.
Yeah.
That because we took those steps long ago, right, to commit to each other, to go beyond just conventional financial literacy, to question things and determine, in advance. Like, for instance, when we do like give ourselves a raise from our business, we already know we're going to tithe 10% of that raise, right? Where tithe increases. 10% is going to go additional to long-term, medium-term, and short-term savings. So there goes 40% of our raise. It's already pre-decided because we decided that a long time ago. And then we get to have fun with the other 60%. What happens then? With that.
Yeah.
What's that growth area that we want to put that towards, or something along those lines? So that kind of makes all the smaller decisions easier because we already put those big rocks in. Those big decisions have already been made. And we fought about those a long time ago, and now we don't have to fight about them anymore.
And I think that's a big thing of the percentage model. Really helps to make the decisions, and that's why I like profit first too in the business side is percentages. So we
used to fight all the time about whether to spend this money within the business or not, just like we would on the personal side. Yeah. And now we just let profit first tell us if we can or not.
Yep. And I think that's really helpful, and to see, hey, there's only really 2 things we can control usually in business. One is I can make more money. Like some people, they can if they're in a W-2 job. They're waiting for their boss to give them that. And either I can make more money or I can spend less. And sometimes when people make more money, they spend more. And I think that maybe proportional, maybe a little bit as you get more income, but you don't want it to get to where you're making 200,000 and you're spending 200,000. And I think that's the challenge in our world, as we like, oh, you deserve it, you deserve this and that. And I think sometimes, hey, we don't really, I don't know. Sometimes it's good to say you deserve it, and sometimes not, I guess.
It's like both and. Yeah. You deserve it and you don't deserve it at the same time. and what, like, if you really go to your priorities and what do you want most, is your money giving you that kind of stuff too.
Yeah.
Well, I think we can go ahead and wrap up today. We covered a lot there. There's some hopefully golden nuggets in there for people.
Yeah, there wasn't too many people here this week, probably because we're talking about 15 years of marriage is more introspective. But I'm hoping that you guys, as you listen to this, you take something from this. And
really, please share, if you're watching the replay, please share in the comments what stuck out to you. What are you going to dwell on more, and see how it could apply to you?
Yeah, I think.
And don't forget, some of these things could apply if you're not married to anyone that you might share finances with, whether they be roommates or loved ones that move in with you, or you have to move in with them, or what have you.
We did actually, that is an interesting point. We did have 3 roommates. Was it 3? Yeah.
At one time we had 3 roommates. Yeah.
3 roommates and us when we first started the business.
And 3 cats.
Yeah, that was nuts. But it was.
That's what we had to do to make ends meet.
To make it happen. And again, did we deserve better? I don't know. But we wanted to do what we could to make the business work, and that's what we did. And thinking about, what are you willing to do to make it work? Whether it's your marriage, whether it's your finances, actually
a friendship, a business,
actually do the work, and not just say, oh, I'm entitled to this, but what work are you willing to do to get the results you want?
And work could look like weekly date nights. Yeah.
So I think that's what I want to leave people with, is it is any relationship requires work. And so including
a relationship with money, relationships within business. It doesn't have to just be marriage.
Or a relationship with yourself, right?
Yeah.
All of that. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's what I want to leave people with is, hey, what are you willing to do? And that's part of what we talk about when we talk to our clients, and why we're uniquely qualified, I guess, in this, is because we talk about, hey, it's more than just your money, right? You can have some piece set up, but it's more about the habits that you put yourself in. And those habits over time lead to success, or they lead to failure. So yeah, my question to you guys is, which ones do you want?
Yeah. It's what's that quote that I'm going to totally butcher, that like a life is made up of habits, right?
Small actions over time. I don't know.
No, it's like your life is mostly the sum of your habits.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because those are the things you do consistently, right? I'm gonna look this up. Oh, here we go. We are the sum of our habits. You are the sum of your habits. Here we go. It's an anonymous quote. Life is a sum of habits, only occasionally disturbed by a thought.
Yep.
Okay, we'll leave you with that, friends. Please join us for future lives. There will not be one next Friday because we were going to be celebrating our 15-year anniversary, which is next Thursday. But we'll catch you back here. But there will be a new podcast episode next week. And of course, there's all the back episodes here on the YouTube show and on the podcast in case you miss us.
Yeah, so binge, like, share, all that fun stuff.
And be sure you're subscribed.
Yeah. And really, our goal in all of this is to help you take charge of your cash flow, leverage your assets, and break through to a smart, stable financial future in your finances and in your marriage and in all your relationships.
We'll chat with you again soon. And don't forget, you can still comment.